You send a desperate text message to a close friend. Like you are in a real crisis.
Oh, yeah, the kind where your hands are actually shaking while you type.
Exactly. You are shaking. So you hit send.
Yeah.
And, you watch those three little dots appear as they start to reply, right?
The typing indicator.
Yeah. And you feel this immediate wave of relief. Like, okay, they're there. But then the dots just disappear.
Oh, man. That is the worst feeling.
It really is. You just wait, stare at the screen, you see the little read receipt pop up, and then nothing.
Just deafening silence.
Right. Just this agonizing, totally hollow feeling. But now, imagine that silence isn't coming from a friend. Imagine that silence is coming from the creator of the universe.
Wow. Yeah, that forces a crisis of faith that goes down to the very bedrock of what someone believes about reality.
It really does.
Because, when you operate with the conviction that God is completely sovereign, that he is actively involved in the details of the world, well, his silence cannot be dismissed as mere distraction.
Right, he didn't just misplace his phone.
Exactly. It feels terrifyingly intentional.
Well, welcome to Reformed Thinking. Today, we are taking a deep dive into an experience that honestly, almost every single person listening to this has faced or, eventually will face.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are looking at a stack of incredibly profound source material today. Specifically, we're diving into excerpts from the commentary Critical and Explanatory on the Whole Bible by David Brown and his colleagues.
A phenomenal resource.
It is. And we're focusing entirely on their deep dive into Psalm 10. And for you, the listener, the reason we are spending this time tearing this text apart is because it answers, the most agonizing tension in the human experience.
Which is that feeling of absolute divine silence.
Right. Divine silence, while the most malicious, arrogant people seem to just effortlessly succeed.
Yeah, we are tracing this really profound psychological and theological descent today. And then, thankfully, an ascent.
Right. We don't stay at the bottom.
No, we don't. We begin by basically standing in the mud with someone who feels entirely abandoned by God's providence.
Yeah.
But from there, the text is going to act as like a mirror and a scalpel. It dissects the internal thought processes of corrupt people, how they justify their actions, how they hunt the vulnerable, and really how they view the universe.
It gets so dark, but it's so necessary to understand.
Exactly. And ultimately, we are going to arrive at a staggering, triumphant reality of divine justice. It's a journey from the trenches of despair to this soaring view of sovereign justice.
But, we have to start right there in the trenches. Looking at the very first verse of this text, the sufferer isn't just complaining about, bad circumstances.
Right, it's not just a bad day at work.
No. They are asking, and I'm quoting here, "Why standest thou afar off, O Lord? Why hidest thou thyself in times of trouble?" And the analysis in the commentary here hones in on that word hidest.
Yeah, that specific word is crucial.
Right, because the underlying implication is the hiding of the eyes or the hiding of the face.
And the hidden face is just one of the most terrifying concepts in ancient literature, especially within a worldview that understands God as the sustainer of all life.
Because if the face is hidden, you're cut off from the source.
Exactly. If God's face shines upon you, it means favor, it means protection, and active blessing. So to have the face hidden, it means the total withdrawal of that active, sensible comfort.
Wow.
Yeah. And the author of this commentary notes that the speaker here isn't just feeling a bit melancholy. This is a state of active, consuming mourning.
Active mourning.
Yes. And importantly, this mourning does not happen in a vacuum. It is being continuously provoked by the environment.
Which goes right back to that text message analogy we started with.
Right.
It's not just that your friend didn't reply to your crisis text. It's that, an hour later, you see them posting photos on social media from a lavish party.
Oh,
and it's a party thrown by the very person who ruined your life. The text we are looking at points out that the mourning is aggravated by the successful malice, the blasphemy, the pride, and the profanity of the wicked.
It's the contrast, right? That's what makes the silence so unbearable.
Exactly. Suffering is hard enough.
Mm.
But suffering while the architect of your misery gets a promotion or buys a second home.
Yeah.
And is, celebrated by society. That feels like a glitch in the moral universe.
It really does. The apparent indifference of the divine is amplified tenfold by the apparent endorsement of the wicked by the world.
Yeah.
Because if you believe in a sovereign God who governs reality, and reality is currently rewarding the unjust, well, the temptation is to believe that God actually favors the unjust.
Which is a terrifying thought.
It is.
Yeah.
That is the core tension of the hidden face. And it brings us to the mechanics of the pride that these corrupt individuals are operating with.
All right, let's look at that literal translation provided for the second verse. It reveals this calculated trap. It says, "In pride of the wicked, they," meaning the humble, "shall be taken in the devices they," meaning the proud, "have imagined."
The pride isn't just a passive character flaw here.
No, it's not just someone looking in the mirror too long.
Right. The pride is the actual engine that drives the victimization of other people. Their arrogance literally births the traps they set.
But there is a phrase right after this in the third verse that, it made me stop reading entirely when I was prepping for this.
Which part?
The part where the text says, "The wicked person desires success in evil." Which, okay, I understand that. Bad people want their bad plans to work out.
Sure.
But then it notes that this person blesseth the covetous and despiseth the Lord. Wait, how does a human being with a functioning conscience reach a point where they are actively blessing the concept of greed?
Well, we are looking at the total systemic corruption of the human heart here. What the text is describing is an absolute inversion of morality.
An inversion.
Yes. It goes far beyond, a temporary lapse in judgment or just a moment of weakness born of desperation. This is a soul-level, deeply rooted desire for evil to succeed.
Wow.
And it's accompanied by a conscious, public celebration of what ought to be condemned. The word used is covetousness, which is an insatiable desire to acquire what belongs to others, regardless of the human cost.
So greed isn't just tolerated. It is literally elevated to a virtue.
Exactly. And to bless the covetous, to look at someone who is ruthlessly greedy, who steps on the vulnerable to accumulate wealth, and to say, that person is blessed, that person is the ideal standard of living.
Right.
That inherently requires despising any kind of divine, objective moral authority. You cannot celebrate the exact opposite of a just God's character without simultaneously despising God himself. They are mutually exclusive.
Think about how this plays out right now in our own culture.
Oh, it's everywhere.
It really is. We don't use a word like covetous in everyday conversation anymore. We use polished business jargon.
Right. Like what?
Like we say someone is a shark. We praise their killer instinct. We applaud a billionaire's hustle, even when, investigative reports clearly show that their hustle involved exploiting legal loopholes, crushing small competitors, and denying basic benefits to their workers.
Right. We rebrand the greed.
Exactly. We put them on magazine covers. We buy their autobiographies to learn their secrets. We are, in a very real, tangible way, blessing the covetous.
And when a society elevates the acquisition of power and wealth completely above the ethical means by which they are acquired, it is engaging in the exact inversion of morality described in this text.
It's terrifying when you frame it like that.
It looks at the poisonous fruit of pride and just labels it a blessing. And the commentary makes it explicitly clear that this is a direct result of discarding the ultimate standard of justice.
Right.
When you remove a sovereign, holy God from the center of your worldview, greed inevitably rushes in to become the new metric for human success.
Okay, so if we know what they desire like, they want success in their schemes and they celebrate greed, we have to ask how they live with themselves.
Yeah, what's their internal logic?
Right. How do they sleep at night knowing they are actively destroying lives? What is the internal monologue of someone who has completely inverted morality?
Well, the commentary provides this brilliant analytical framework when we look at the next few verses. It digs into their bedrock anti-theology.
Let's get into that, because the physical description here is fascinating.
It really is. The text points out that the face expresses the self-conceit. The arrogance is so profound, so deeply internalized that it literally alters their physical countenance.
You can picture it, right? It's that tangible, visible smugness.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the slight smirk on the face of a CEO during a congressional hearing when they know they already have the politicians in their pocket. It's a physical manifestation of untouchability.
And the commentary delivers an incredibly precise phrase to describe the ultimate fruit of this self-conceit. It calls it practical atheism.
Okay, we need to unpack practical atheism for the listener.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because when I hear the word atheism, my mind immediately goes to formal, intellectual debates. I think of a philosopher writing books arguing against the existence of a deity based on the problem of evil, or maybe the theory of evolution.
Right.
Is that what the text means here? Are these corrupt people sitting around writing treatises against God?
Not at all. And that distinction is absolutely vital for understanding this text. Practical atheism is entirely behavioral.
Behavioral.
Yes. The commentary links this concept to the famous line in Psalm 14 where it says, "The fool has said in his heart, there is no God."
Right.
Now, the fool in this context isn't someone lacking intelligence. It is someone lacking moral sanity.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. Moral sanity.
Right. So practical atheism isn't necessarily a denial that a creator exists in some vague, abstract sense. A practical atheist might sit in a church pew every single Sunday.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. They might use religious language, but Monday through Saturday, in the boardroom, in their private dealings, in how they treat their subordinates, they live, act, and make decisions as though God's providential government simply does not exist.
So the belief isn't God isn't real. The belief is God isn't relevant.
Exactly. It is the deeply held conviction that God, even if he is up there somewhere, does not intervene, does not judge, and fundamentally does not hold humanity accountable. They act as the sole sovereign of their own universe.
Before we go further on that, we keep throwing around the phrase providential government or just providence.
Yeah, we should define that.
Because for a modern listener, that can sound like a celestial bureaucracy. What does that actually look like on the ground? What is the practical atheist actually ignoring?
That is a crucial clarification. When the text speaks of God's providence, it is not describing a clockmaker who just wound up the universe and walked away to let it tick down on its own.
Right, not a hands-off approach.
No. Providence is the understanding that God is intimately, actively, and sovereignly governing every single atom, every single action, and every single event in human history.
Meaning nothing slips by.
Exactly. It means there is no such thing as random chance, and there is no hidden corner of the universe where actions do not have moral consequences dictated by a just king.
And the practical atheist just looks at that concept and completely dismisses it.
Completely.
And because they dismiss it, they develop what the text calls this intense delusion of the prominence of his way or course of life. They think they are entirely safe.
Yeah.
Let's ground this. I picture a corrupt corporate executive. This guy has been cooking the books for years. He's skimming millions off the top, moving money through offshore shell companies, and he's totally defrauding his employees who are trusting him with their pensions.
No, classic scenario.
Right. Now, year one, he is probably sweating bullets every time the phone rings, waiting for the audit. Year two, he's a little more relaxed, but still cautious. By year 10, he has convinced himself that he is literally untouchable. The text specifically says he ignores divine justice because it is out of sight, because he will not look.
It is a willful, calculated blindness. The evidence of moral consequence, the evidence of human suffering caused by his actions, is all around him. But he refuses to turn his head to see it.
Wow.
The executive in your analogy hasn't been audited yet. Therefore, he concludes that audits are just a myth that only happen to lesser, stupider people. He prefers the comfort of his self-constructed delusion.
And the result of that willful blindness is a staggering level of hubris. The commentary notes that this person sneers at his enemies and boasts of perpetual freedom from evil.
Yeah.
He literally believes he has found a cheat code to reality. He thinks he has outsmarted the moral universe.
When you remove the concept of an active, judging God from your worldview, when you fully embrace practical atheism, you inevitably deify yourself.
Because something has to sit on the throne.
Exactly. Nature abhors a vacuum. And if God is not on the throne of the universe in your mind, you will put yourself there. The wicked man sneers because he genuinely views himself as the highest power in the room.
And he boasts of perpetual freedom from consequence because he believes he is the one dictating the terms of reality.
Exactly right.
But, this internal delusion doesn't just stay in their head. It bleeds out into the world. Practical atheism inevitably breeds predation.
Yeah, it really does.
Because if you believe there is no cosmic judge, and you believe you are the highest power in existence, the next logical step is to start consuming the people around you to feed your own desires.
Yes.
The text moves from the internal delusion to the external actions. It opens up the predator's playbook.
And this is where the language of the text becomes incredibly visceral. The abstract concepts of pride and practical atheism manifest in terrifying, concrete behaviors.
Let's look at verse 7.
Yeah, the malignity and deceit we discussed earlier are followed by acts combining cunning, fraud, and violence.
It's a calculated escalation. It mirrors the progression of organized crime, really.
How so?
Well, you start with deceit like lying on a document. When that isn't enough to get what you want, you move to outright fraud. You actually steal the money. And when fraud is threatened by exposure, you introduce violence to maintain your power and silence your accusers.
That makes perfect sense. The author of the commentary unpacks some very vivid metaphors used in the original text here, drawing parallels between the actions of these corrupt individuals and the habits of a lion or of hunters taking their prey.
I want to look really closely at the anatomy of this ambush, because the physical description here is chilling. Look at verse 8.
Okay.
The text highlights the detail of the predator watching privily, and it describes this as watching with half-closed eyes, appearing not to see.
Wow. Why does that specific detail, the half-closed eyes, resonate so strongly with you?
Because it captures the absolute terrifying nature of weaponized passivity.
Weaponized passivity.
Yes. It's the sociopathic patients required to feign ignorance right up until the exact moment of the strike. I mean, think about it. If a predator is openly snarling at you, if someone is yelling at you across a room, you have options.
Right, you can react.
You can run, you can prepare to fight, your adrenaline kicks in because the threat is obvious, but the predator, with half-closed eyes, they are pretending to be asleep.
Yeah.
They are pretending you aren't even on their radar. They lull you into a false sense of absolute security. It is the coworker who acts like your most trusted confidant, who asks about your kids and brings you coffee, while quietly gathering intelligence and copying your emails to get you fired and steal your promotion.
Oh, that is so insidious.
Right. Or it is the domestic abuser who acts perfectly charming, calm, and generous in public, manipulating everyone around them while preparing to isolate and destroy their victim in private. It is terrifying because you don't know you are being hunted until the teeth are already in your neck.
Weaponized passivity is a devastatingly accurate way to describe this. A lion does not roar when it is stalking. It flattens itself entirely into the tall grass. It becomes part of the background.
Exactly.
And the analysis brings us out even further when it looks at the word croucheth. The predator gathers himself into as small a compass as possible to make the greater spring.
They are minimizing their presence to maximize their impact.
Right. The illusion of insignificance is the necessary prelude to overwhelming violence. The practical atheist, who boasts so loudly in his own mind, who sneers at his enemies, knows exactly how to make himself look very small, very compliant, and very unthreatening when he is hunting.
Yes.
It is a deadly combination of supreme internal arrogance and calculated external humility.
Now, as we look at who is being hunted, the commentary points out a really fascinating peculiarity with the word poor in these verses.
Yes, it shifts.
It actually shifts its meaning depending on the verse.
Yeah.
What is the text doing there?
It is a vital distinction for understanding the scope of the predator's malice. In several of these verses, like 8, 10, and 14, the Hebrew word translated as poor is a very specific term peculiar to this psalm. It means the sad, the sorrowful, or the wretched.
Okay.
It refers to people who are already broken, already vulnerable, already weighed down by life circumstances. They are the easy targets.
So they are picking off the stragglers of the herd, the people who just don't have the resources to fight back.
Yes. But then, in verse 9, right in the middle of this section, the word translated as poor reverts to its more usual meaning in the Psalms.
Which is what?
The pious, the meek sufferer, the righteous person who is attempting to live a moral life.
Okay, so the victim profile includes both the defenseless and the devout. But why target the righteous if they aren't necessarily the easiest prey?
Because the righteous person represents an existential threat to the predator's inverted morality.
Oh, I see.
The pious person, simply by existing, simply by trying to live justly and acknowledging God's providential government, is a walking, breathing indictment of the practical atheist's entire worldview.
Because their moral framework condemns the greed that the wicked person is actively trying to bless.
Exactly. Therefore, the pious must be consumed. The predator hunts the sorrowful because it is easy, and they hunt the saint because it is necessary to protect their delusion.
Man. And here is the truly terrifying part.
Yeah.
They aren't doing it alone.
No.
This is not a lone wolf scenario.
No.
We have to look at the phrase at the end of verse 10 where the victim falls by his strong ones. The commentary explains that the lion metaphor is dropped here, and this phrase refers to the accomplices of the chief or leading wicked man.
This is an organized syndicate of malice.
A syndicate. This is a crucial evolution in the scope of the evil being described. We started with the internal pride of a single individual, but systemic evil rarely remains isolated. The chief wicked man gathers strong ones around him. He builds an institution of fraud.
It goes back to the corrupt executive you mentioned earlier.
Right.
He doesn't just cook the books himself. He promotes middle managers who are willing to look the other way. He hires lawyers who specialize in intimidation.
He builds a team of yes men and enforcers who will carry out the dirty work, insulating himself from the direct fallout.
Yeah.
The victim isn't just facing one arrogant person. They're facing an entire network of power, specifically designed to crush them.
And that realization that you are facing an entrenched syndicate of organized malice, led by someone who believes they are immune to any consequence and equipped with accomplices ready to execute their will, is what makes the victim feel so utterly, completely helpless.
Yeah.
The trap has been set, the hunter is crouching with half-closed eyes, the strong ones are waiting to strike, and when the victim looks up for help, the sky is completely silent.
Which brings us to the turning point of the text. Because the victim has run out of earthly options. There is no human court that can dismantle this level of entrenched, arrogant, systemic power. The strong ones have rigged the game. So the text transitions to the only logical recourse left, a desperate appeal to the highest possible authority.
Yes.
But before the plea is even uttered, the text pauses to remind us of the fatal flaw in the predator's playbook in verse 11. The wicked reiterate their core belief. They say in their hearts, God hath forgotten. He hideth his face. He will never see it.
They assume their ambush will go entirely unnoticed by the divine. They are banking their entire operation on the assumption that the silence of God equals the absence of God.
Right. They think the read receipt on the text message means God just threw his phone in the ocean.
That's exactly it. But the analysis here sharply contrasts this arrogant assumption with the absolute reality of the universe in verses 13 and 14.
Okay.
The author states plainly, "It is in vain to suppose God will overlook sin. God is meticulously examining everything. However, the commentary also acknowledges that God is forbearing. There is a delay."
Okay, I have to stop you right there. I have to push back on this. Because this word forbearance, it feels like a theological trap.
How so?
Because if you're the person in the trenches, if you are the one currently being hunted by the strong ones, if your pension is being stolen today, if you are enduring abuse right now, hearing that God is forbearing feels like cold, empty comfort.
I completely understand that.
Honestly, it sounds like a convenient theological excuse for why bad guys get to keep winning. How is a victim supposed to hear the word forbearance and not just hear permission for the wicked to continue destroying my life? If God has the power to stop it, and he doesn't, how is that not abandonment?
That is the most difficult, agonizing question in the entire discussion of providence, and it is a completely valid emotional response to trauma. The text does not shy away from that agony at all.
Yeah.
But the framework provided here resolves it by drawing a massive, unyielding line between two concepts. Forbearance is not ignorance, and a delay in justice is not a denial of justice.
Okay, walk me through the mechanics of that, because from the ground, forbearance looks exactly like ignorance.
Right. The wicked man assumes that because he wasn't struck by lightning the exact second he committed fraud, God must be blind. He confuses God's patience with God's impotence.
He thinks he got away with it.
But the text insists that God beholds all wickedness. The underlying Hebrew carries the weight of a meticulous, active investigation. God is watching the lion crouch. He sees the half-closed eyes.
Wow.
He is perfectly cataloging every single act of the syndicate, every whispered lie, every stolen dollar, every moment of abuse. He is actively marking it for his providential punishment, which the text refers to as thine hand.
Okay, so to stick with the corporate executive.
Yeah, let's go back to him.
The executive thinks the absence of an immediate audit means the federal government just doesn't care. He thinks he got away with it. But in reality, the investigators have been quietly building a massive, airtight RICO case against him for 5 years. They are watching every wire transfer. They have tapped his phones. They are forbearing the immediate minor arrest for a low-level charge in order to ensure the final prosecution completely dismantles his entire syndicate and leaves him with absolutely no legal escape.
That is precisely how the Reformed understanding of providence views this dynamic. God's forbearance is the gathering of the storm.
The gathering of the storm.
Yes, it is the meticulous, perfect preparation of inescapable justice. The wicked man mistakes the quietness of the courtroom for the absence of the judge. But the judge is simply letting the wicked man fully manifest his corruption. filling up the measure of his guilt, so that when the gavel finally falls, the justice is absolute and unassailable.
Knowing that this perfect case is being built, how does the sufferer actually react in the moment? Because they are still carrying the pain. Look at the desperate plea in verse 12. Arise, O Lord, O God, lift up thine hand.
Meaning, exert thy power.
Right. It's a demand for the hidden face to finally reveal itself.
Notice what the sufferer is asking God to behold in verse 14. The text uses the words mischief and spite.
What does that mean in this context?
The commentary defines these not just as abstract, generic sins against a moral code, but specifically as the provocation and trouble of the sufferer. God isn't just noting broken rules on a cosmic spreadsheet. He is intimately observing the exact pain, the sleepless nights, the panic attacks, and the profound sorrow inflicted upon the victim.
Which makes the psychological shift in the very next phrase so incredibly powerful. The text says, the poor committeth himself unto God. And the analysis highlights that this word committeth literally translates to leaves his burden on God.
Let's linger on the mechanics of that action. What does it actually mean for a victim to leave their burden? How do you practically do that when the strong ones are still crouching at your door?
Well, it has to signify a complete physical and spiritual transfer of weight. I mean, think about what it feels like to carry a massive boulder of injustice.
Yeah.
You are carrying the anxiety of being hunted. You are carrying the white-hot rage at the arrogant syndicate that is getting away with it. You are carrying the despair of the silence.
It's crushing.
It is. And if you try to fight the lion while holding that boulder, you will be crushed. To leave the burden means you make a conscious decision to stop trying to be your own vindicator. You stop obsessing over how you are going to orchestrate their downfall.
Right.
You take this massive, crushing weight of need for retribution, you walk it over to the feet of God's providential government, you set it down, and you walk away from it. You say, I am not strong enough to execute justice, but I trust the judge.
It is the ultimate act of relinquishing control. And it is the exact antithesis of the wicked man's practical atheism.
How so?
Well, the practical atheist acts as if he is the sovereign of his own life, right?
Oh.
Attempting to control everything through deceit and violence. But the righteous sufferer, in this profound moment of leaving the burden, actively acknowledges that God is the sovereign judge. The sufferer is declaring, I cannot break the power of this syndicate, but I know you can, and I know you will, with perfect timing.
So the burden has been transferred, the airtight case has been built, the forbearance has reached its end. Now we look at the final analysis in verses 15 and 16 of how God's sovereign reign actually answers the practical atheist's boasts. This is where the tension finally breaks.
The silence is shattered. The text shifts from pleading to a declaration of impending action. The psalmist prays, break thou the arm of the wicked and the evil man.
And the arm.
The arm is universally recognized in this context as a symbol of power, authority, and capacity to act. The commentary defines it simply as power.
So the plea is to systematically dismantle the syndicate's ability to inflict harm. It's a prayer to freeze the corrupt executive's bank accounts, to strip the hunter of his weapons, to expose the abuser so they lose their social standing, break the mechanism that allows them to hunt.
Exactly. But the analysis focuses intently on the second half of that verse, and we cannot overstate the importance of this phrase. Seek out his wickedness till thou find none.
Till thou find none.
Right. The practical atheist assumed God would never see their sin, that he would not requite it, as they assume back in verses 11 and 13. But far from ignoring it, God will utterly, exhaustively destroy the wicked and his deeds.
Wow.
The justice is not a slap on the wrist. It is not a temporary setback. It is a root and branch eradication of the evil power structure.
I want to connect this back to a massive cosmic irony from earlier in our deep dive.
Yeah.
Think back to the internal delusion of the wicked man in verse 6.
Okay.
He boasted in his own mind of perpetual freedom from evil. He truly thought his success, his wealth, and his safety were permanent.
Yes, the hubris of permanence.
The absolute punchline of providence is that the wicked man was actually right about the word perpetual. He just applied it to the wrong subject.
Oh, wow.
His freedom from evil wasn't perpetual.
Yeah.
What is actually perpetual, what is total, final, and inescapable is his destruction. God seeks out his wickedness till thou find none. The eradication is permanent. The illusion of his permanent safety is shattered by the reality of eternal, unyielding justice.
It is a staggering contrast. And it brings us to the majestic climax of this entire realization. It is summarized in 2 words in the final summary of verse 16. God reigns.
God reigns.
Yeah.
It's not a request, it's a statement of absolute fact.
If the wicked are successful, the commentary insists it is only for a time. The delay is entirely temporary. The justice is eternal. They shall be cut off.
Right.
The practical atheist operates on a pathetically finite timeline. They mistake a brief, fleeting moment of divine forbearance for an eternity of immunity. But God operates on the timeline of an eternal, sovereign reign.
I'm just marveling at the threefold action of God that the analysis details in this final summary. It perfectly, beautifully resolves all the agonizing tension we built up in the first half of this deep dive.
Let's walk through those three actions.
Yeah. Number one, God hears and confirms the hearts of his suffering people. The text message was not ignored. The read receipt was actually a receipt of perfect, intimate comprehension. He heard the mourning. He felt the sorrow.
Number two, he executes justice for the feeble. The very people who were targeted specifically because they were sad, sorrowful, or vulnerable are the ones who are ultimately vindicated. The highest, most absolute power in the universe is deployed on behalf of the weakest members of society.
And number three, he represses the pride and violence of conceited men. The face that was contorted with self-conceit is brought completely low. The lion crouching with half-closed eyes is broken and scattered.
And the author leaves us with one final, masterful contrast to highlight the reality of this repression.
What's that?
The text notes that the chief wicked man, with all his strong ones, with his entire organized syndicate of malice, with his wealth and his boast of perpetual safety, is ultimately revealed to be nothing more than a frail man standing before the eternal reign of God.
A frail man.
Just a frail man.
After all the boasting, all the psychological warfare, all the practical atheism, all the predation, when the illusion is stripped away, he's just dust.
The illusion of his immense, terrifying power was only possible because God was temporarily staying his hand. The moment providence is fully activated, the syndicate evaporates like mist in the sun. The eternal sovereign stands, and the frail rebel falls.
We have covered incredible ground today. We journeyed from agonizing illusion of a hidden God, that visceral feeling of sending a desperate plea into the void and getting absolute silence in return.
Yeah.
And then we dissected the psychology of practical atheism, looking at how arrogant people convince themselves that a delay in justice means they're the supreme rulers of their own lives. We saw how that delusion inevitably turns them into predators, using weaponized passivity and half-closed eyes to hunt the vulnerable.
But we didn't stay in the mud. We witnessed the profound, difficult act of the sufferer taking the crushing burden of vindication and leaving it entirely on God.
Right.
And we ended with the unshakable reality of providential justice, the truth that divine forbearance is just the meticulous preparation of perfect, permanent justice against frail men who dared to mock the king.
It is a stunning arc. But before we sign off, we want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to chew on. We want to take this ancient text and pull it right into your everyday life.
Because the analysis noted that the root of the wicked man's false security was that providence was out of sight, because he will not look. It was a willful blindness born of comfort and success.
Yeah.
So consider your own life. It is very easy to listen to this and immediately identify with the righteous sufferer. We all feel like victims at times. But look inward. Where might you be operating with half-closed eyes?
Oh, that's a tough question.
In your moments of financial security, when you get that promotion, when your life is comfortable and stable, are you slipping into a subtle form of practical atheism? Are you acting as if your achievements are solely the result of your own hustle, your own intellect, willfully refusing to look at the providential, sovereign hand that gives you the very breath in your lungs?
It is remarkably easy to boast in our own permanence when the bank account is full. It is so easy to forget the hidden face when everything is going exactly the way we planned. Next time you look at your own success, ask yourself who you are blessing in your heart.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on Reformed Thinking. We hope this deep dive has given you a new framework for understanding both the dark depths of the human heart and the unyielding, meticulous light of divine justice.
Keep exploring the depths of your sources.
Keep asking the hard questions, and we will see you on the next deep dive. And remember, the next time you're staring at a read receipt in the middle of a crisis, the silence might just be the sound of perfect justice being meticulously prepared.